Linksano here with the first episode of this year's Midsummer's Nightmare, the Godzilla-thon! Marvel Comics had the license to the legendary monster from 1977 to 1979, and if you've seen Linkara's retrospective on ROM Space Knight, you shouldn't be surprised that indeed, Godzilla was a canon part of the Marvel Universe. Emerging from the ice in Alaska, Godzilla goes on a rampage that levels the Alaskan oil pipeline. This version of the monster was born, like so many other incarnations, from nuclear tests, though in this case underwater ones that awoke and mutated a slumbering prehistoric monster. Yes, Godzilla! He proceeded to devastate Japan for 2 decades, sometimes fighting other monsters, as shown in the movies, but now he has moved on to America. S.H.I.E.L.D. is dispatched to fight him and, as you can probably guess, fares about as well as any normal military does against him. Godzilla then proceeds to use his thermonuclear breath and lights Alaska on fire! Naturally, as a human being, I am horrified by such fire and death. As a mad scientist, though, I am cackling in delight. As Godzilla proceeds on his way, they try several plans to drive him off. Sometimes they succeed, not hurting him, but at least getting him to go in a different direction. While still other times, the superheroes of the Marvel Universe must confront him. Thus is the case when he hits San Francisco and confronts the team known as the Champions, consisting of Black Widow, Angel, Iceman, and Hercules. Hercules is indeed able to accomplish the seemingly impossible, forcing Godzilla to topple backwards. Unfortunately, their interference causes the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier to crash into the bay and Godzilla to escape once again. Although that's probably for the best, because soon Godzilla encounters his first new proper enemy in the book. Batragon, a kind of mixture of bat and dragon. Note to self, genetically engineer bat and dragon hybrid to ride on as my steed, if and when I decide to take over the world. Batragon, and other giant monsters like it, are under the sway of a supervillain named Dr. Demonicus and his army of similarly costumed minions. I'd certainly like to know where he got his doctorate from, since instead of just using his army of giant monsters to take over the world, he's content to use them to attack oil tankers. No, his backstory is as a geneticist studying radiation and mutation, driven mad by an accident when he was exposed to a radiation spill, which apparently made him decide that he wouldn't look ridiculous with those horns. Utilizing a meteor that emitted strange cosmic radiation, he mutated several creatures into his own army of kaijus. Batragon was the first. But like so many other mad scientists, he's too attached to his creations. So when Godzilla starts killing one named Gilaron, he swears vengeance and turns his attention away from S.H.I.E.L.D., which swoops in to help stop Demonicus. One agent in particular, Gabe Jones, begins to wonder if perhaps Godzilla is not really on the side of the angels, especially when it spares the life of longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Dum Dum Dugan, who's determined to slay the beast. But it's not Dum Dum Dugan who has the right idea in fighting the beast with tanks and helicopters, but a Japanese scientist named Takiguchi, the only survivor of the nuclear test that originally woke Godzilla up. He knows that the only way to fight a giant monster is with another giant monster. So he has enlisted the help of Stark Industries to construct a giant robot to do such a thing. Normally in these types of stories, that tends to be Mechagodzilla. But this is the Marvel Universe, where we have to invent new designs and characters all the time. And thus is revealed Red Ronin, a giant samurai robot dispatched like a knight to slay the dragon. And for some reason they decided that it should be helmed by having it be controlled through thought waves instead of freaking levers and buttons. Bah, might as well be a video game. Hey, here's this perfectly reasonable controller you use with your hands. Nah, let's try out the fancy new technology that barely works and requires a peripheral. Just saying, it'll be very awkward if the pilot, the love interest of Takiguchi's assistant Tamara, thinks about her in the middle of the fight and Red Ronin tries to make out with Godzilla. Oh, but there's little worry about that. You see, by accident, the first person whose brainwaves are attuned to the robot is Rob, Takaguchi's young grandson, who's determined to stop the Americans from killing Godzilla because he doesn't think he's a threat. Oh yes, I'm sure the people who are still alive after Godzilla set half of Alaska on fire will back you up on that, kid. It's a three-way battle between Red Ronin, Godzilla, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. forces. Rob determined to keep Godzilla from getting killed, S.H.I.E.L.D. trying to kill Godzilla while also trying to keep Rob from getting hurt, and Godzilla just being Godzilla. They drive Godzilla off, for the time being. The simple fact is that even when they do repel him, the damage is done. From Seattle, Washington to Las Vegas, Nevada, Godzilla leaves devastation in his wake, destroying lives. At least the ones that weren't already wrecked. But then, that's the dichotomy of Godzilla. On one side, a warning to the dangers of the atom bomb, and yet also a friend to mankind, as nuclear power can also be useful and good and helpful, as seen when Godzilla must fight yet another monster, a mutated Sasquatch called Yetragar, who threatens to destroy anything in its path. And wouldn't you know it, who should happen to ruin a giant monster fight but a small child? Yes, Rob steals Red Ronin again to attack, almost accidentally killing some rafting people in the process, though he's unaware of that, and interrupting an otherwise good brawl. Admittedly, it's still a three-way battle between giant monsters, but considering he still won't even try to hurt Yetragar, it really is a reminder that children and giant monsters don't mix. And personally, I'm not that fond of them at all outside of giant monsters. Birth the little things, stick them in a tube so they can mature in there, and then let them out. That's the science way. The kid is forced to kill Yetragar, though, so there's some hope for him yet. But enough about him, let's get back to the reason we're here. Godzilla, the king of the monsters, reigns supreme, not just on Earth, but the entire universe. This is shown when aliens abduct Godzilla to help fight off a monster called the Beta Beast. As bizarre as that is, it isn't even the first time Godzilla's fought in outer space. The aliens have been fighting a war of attrition with another race. Their resources dwindled down now, only to kidnapping large monsters from other worlds and forcing them to fight. The aliens want the war to stop, especially since their enemies are dispatching a group of new monsters to Earth to conquer it for its resources. They actually managed to explain this to Godzilla, who seems to understand it on a primitive level. And so Godzilla teams up with Red Ronin once again to fight off these invaders. It is a glorious battle against the Mega Monsters, as they are called, with their own unique and frightening abilities that are so devastating to Salt Lake City, Godzilla, and of course to Red Ronin, whose head gets sliced off. But fortunately, S.H.I.E.L.D. arrives once again and realizes that Godzilla is not the aggressor here, distracting two of the monsters so Godzilla can kill the third with his claws and teeth, before then shooting his thermonuclear breath clean through the second, and finally uses the third monster's own helicopter tail, used to decapitate Red Ronin, and forces the monster to use it on itself, cutting off its own head. And with the knowledge that their monsters failed, the aliens and their enemies might even come to peace in the wake of their lack of resources to maintain war. Although funny that they still had enough resources to transport a giant monster from one planet to another. After a two-parter where Godzilla encounters a bunch of ranchers who are basically just straight out of a cowboy movie, although I suppose since he just went into space, it's entirely possible he's time-traveled now, the story does take a remarkably bizarre turn, courtesy of resident Ant-Man Hank Pym. By this point, Dum Dum Dugan is convinced that they shouldn't kill Godzilla, but he's still a rampaging monster, so they need a better solution to stop him. Namely, shrinking him down so he's more manageable. Why, even his radioactive breath just causes a little bit of scorching on Dugan when he tries to use it on him. And now Dugan presumably has cancer, I guess. Godzilla manages to escape his cage when they reach New York, and he's forced to fight a rat in the sewers, proving that even at that size, he is still the king of the monsters. he slowly begins to return to normal size, attracting the attention of the Fantastic Four. While S.H.I.E.L.D. lures Godzilla into a museum with high ceilings, the Fantastic Four just barely manages to restrain him, and only then thanks to Mr. Fantastic suffocating Godzilla into unconsciousness. Fortunately, the good Dr. Richards has a simple solution to the Godzilla problem. Time travel! Called it. Using one of Dr. Doom's captured time machines, they send Godzilla back to the Mesozoic era. 900 million years in the past. Well, actually, it's more like 65 to 250 million years in the past, but then again, why would I expect a scientist to know these things? Due to a combination of factors, including Godzilla's radiation affecting the time machine and a magical pit that Godzilla helped send some humans into back 900 million years ago, Godzilla is sent back to the present at full size, and with new Marvel characters to confront. Like J. Jonah Jameson, who happily yells out his window at the monster, who shockingly does not answer with his radioactive fire. But even more importantly, the Avengers! It's absolute pandemonium as the Avengers battle Godzilla, only Thor making a dent in him, Rob demanding that they can't stop Godzilla with brute force, and the city of New York somehow still standing during this awesome fight. And it all comes down to Rob convincing the monster to leave, the creature having somehow made a rapport with the young man, as he sinks off, never to be seen again. Well, sort of. Marvel lost the rights to Godzilla soon afterwards, but not wanting to let a perfectly good character go to waste, Dr. Demonicus returned in the pages of Iron Man to mutate his one-time foe so that he would appear different for copyright reasons. They never referred to him as Godzilla, just as a time-lost dinosaur. Just goes to show that Marvel knew what a good thing they had with the King, even if they couldn't really call him that anymore. The Marvel Godzilla comics are wacky, fun, and above all else, contain the kind of kaiju action we crave. Next time, though, we'll witness the terror of Godzilla! Adapted to manga, then translated into English.